The week's end top stories at NBR. Does the backbone of our economy lack knowledge and know-how to cut carbon emissions? A proposed one-year commercial trial by Zespri in China will not go ahead. A select committee inquiry into cryptocurrency, and there's more coming right up. Kia ora and welcome to NBR This Week. We start with a wrap of the end of the week's top business stories from the authority in New Zealand business news since 1970, nbr.co.nz. Then we'll take a look back at the top NBR Today stories for the last week of June 2021. I'm Paul Brennan. Thanks so much for joining us. Focused on survival and myriad other business pressures, the backbone of New Zealand's economy lacks the know-how and the can-do to cut carbon emissions. Small and medium-sized enterprises make up 97% of New Zealand businesses and generate almost 30% of the country's gross domestic product, with the business sector responsible for 40% of national greenhouse gas emissions. But most businesses with fewer than 100 staff do not know where to find information on how to reduce and eliminate greenhouse gases from their operations, according to recent data. Auckland-based East Imperial is taking on category giant Fevertree in a London Stock Exchange listing that was too good to pass up. Listed shell company Bermelay plc has conditionally agreed to acquire Auckland-based East Imperial for £24.45 million, with a market value of relisting of £30 million, roughly $59.1 million. Tony Burt, a former chief executive of M&C Saatchi New Zealand, founded the mixer company in 2012, focusing on premium tonic waters for mixing with the ever-growing range of artisan gins cropping up in bottle stores around the country. He said travel restrictions and time zone differences had slowed things down, with the deal in the works for 12 months or so. A proposed one-year commercial trial by Zespri in China to run against buying and branding illegally grown sun-gold kiwi fruit there will not go ahead. Voting by eligible New Zealand kiwi fruit producers and growers on a proposed one-season orchard monitoring, procurement and sales and marketing trial in China closed last Friday, with Zespri today announcing the results to unlisted. That said, 70.5% of growers had supported the resolution, below the 75% threshold required to pass. The Cabinet has already reached a decision in principle to increase the border processing levy by more than 200%, despite a proposal document still being out for consultation, Tourism Industry Aotearoa says. A consultation document released by Customs and MPI proposes 6 options, ranging from no charge to increasing the levy from December 1st to a whopping $160.76 per air passenger and $70.23 for cruise travellers. However, ITA Chief Executive Chris Roberts said an official Information Act request has revealed that Cabinet has already agreed in principle to option 2, increasing the levy on December 1st to $63 for air passengers and $35.36 for each cruise passenger in order to recover costs over 3 years. That amounts to air passengers facing a more than 200% increase in the levy, Roberts said. The Finance and Expenditure Select Committee is opening an inquiry into cryptocurrency, beginning with a meeting to prepare the agenda next Wednesday. Labor MP and committee member Greg O'Connor said it was his proposal to conduct the inquiry. He said they're working through the terms of reference at the moment and they'll be wide. With El Salvador having adopted Bitcoin as legal tender and China in May banning financial institutions from providing cryptocurrency services, he said Parliament needs to have a report on it. Those are our top stories as we head into the weekend and the first week of July, the full versions of which, along with all our news, columns and opinion, are at nbr.co.nz right now. You're watching NBR This Week, a brief look back at the week's top stories from our daily news brief program NBR Today. On Monday, what Rocket Lab's Peter Beck retains in the floated company. Rocket Lab founder and CEO Peter Beck stands to hold 13.1% of voting rights in the New Zealand-founded but US-registered space company once it lists on the NASDAQ, expected later this year. An updated SEC registration document filed by Vector Capital's special purpose acquisition company, Vector Acquisition Corp, noted that Beck would hold the stake if all existing shareholders exercise their redemption rights to sell their shares to the company at IPO. Assuming no redemption rights are exercised at that point, Beck would hold a voting stake of 12.2%. Either way, Beck's holding of more than 54.5 million shares would not change and is expected to be worth $771.2 million New Zealand dollars, based on an implied Vector share price used in the IPO documents of US $10. It's NBR This Week, the week's top stories from our daily video business news bulletin NBR Today. From Tuesday, Sky TV takeover offers. Sky TV has received a number of takeover offers during the year and has appointed Jarden to help review potential opportunities, the Chief Executive Sophie Maloney says. The company held an investor presentation this morning in which the company pitched a technological tour de force featuring a new hybrid set-top box, non-fungible tokens and updates related to its broadband offering. During the presentation, Maloney said it would come as no surprise to investors and analysts that she and the board did not believe the current share price, trading at 0.169 cents this afternoon, reflected the underlying value of the company. She also noted, however, that Sky was operating in an industry that's going through significant change and consolidation, both globally and domestically. This is NBR This Week, the past week's top 5 business stories from NBR Today. From Wednesday, water, 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 water. The government has put more flesh on the bones of its 3 waters reform proposals, stating its preference for council water services to be transferred to 4 new regional entities. However, Auckland Mayor Phil Goff has already expressed opposition, saying it undermines council control. The plan for consultation envisages broad oversight of each of the 4 water authorities would be shared equally between representatives of local authorities and mana whenua, who would select and monitor professional boards to run the organisations. Under the proposed borders, the Auckland and North region would be the most populous, with a connected population of about 1.7 million. It's NBR This Week, the top business stories from our daily video news bulletin NBR Today. From Thursday, the government-backed Elevate elevates. The government venture fund Elevate has made its largest investment to date, committing $45 million to venture capitalist Global From Day One's third fund. Global From Day One is an investor in high-growth tech ventures, including electric utility bike maker Ubco, wearable tech pioneer StretchSense, and digital video advertising firm ShuttleRock. Elevate's contribution of $45 million also trumps the government agency's previous 4 allocations. Elevate is a $300 million fund of funds program aimed at filling the Series A and B funding gap for high-growth New Zealand companies by matching private capital dollar for dollar. The GD1 investment brings its total commitment so far to $139 million. This is NBR This Week. Now we're up to Friday's top story. Climate Change Minister James Shaw has said action on climate change remains essential as he considers proceedings filed Friday against him and the Climate Change Commission over alleged failures in the government advisor's final advice. Lawyers for Climate Action NZ Inc. filed a judicial review suit in the High Court against the government and its climate change czar, alleging a logical and mathematical error in the Commission's final advice means New Zealand will not meet domestic and international obligations. In a statement, Shaw said addressing the climate emergency was a priority for the government. Officials were continuing to independently analyse the Commission's final advice. You've been watching our review of the week's top 5 NBR Today stories. You can find the full versions of those stories, along with all our daily breaking business news, columns and opinion at nbr.co.nz right now. Saturday, Grant Walker and Bryce Edwards debate the week in politics, while on Monday, Shoeshine looks at the rise of rap platforms and also explains what they are. I'm Paul Brennan. Thanks for watching NBR This Week. Have a great weekend. I look forward to being with you again from Monday on NBR Today.